Good morning. I hope everybody's doing well and looking forward to a continued discussion here. As we work together to plan this work as an Enterprise Quality Committee and Enterprise Quality Operations Committee, is we recognized and realized that dyads are not a new concept here at the University of Kentucky and UK healthcare. We have many that have been functioning both informally and formally over the course of the last several years. And so we've invited a few of those folks who are acting in that way and working in that way with their units or with their areas of responsibility on a regular basis. To share with us some of their thoughts and ideas about what has made it a positive experience, what the results of that work has been, and how it is that they might suggest to everyone else that there are good ways to do this work. So we have 5 dyads with us here today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how long they've been here and how long they've been working as this physician-nurse dyad pair. So let's begin with Dr. Ritchie and Julie.
I'm Julia DeVergis. I'm the Director of Peri-Op Services for the Center for Advanced Surgery, Good Samaritan Hospital, and the Central Steriles across the enterprise. I've been at UK since 2005 in various roles, and Dr. Ritchie and I started our partnership at the Center for Advanced Surgery in 2010. And so we've worked a long time together now.
My name is Rosalind Ritchie, and I'm the Medical Director for the Center for Advanced Surgery. And as Julia has said, I've been in that role since 2010. I'm also a associate professor in the Department of Anesthesiology, and I did my residency as well at the University of Kentucky in 1993.
Heather.
I'm Heather Vance, Patient Care Manager for Neurosciences, Tower 200. I've been at UK since 1998. We have an informal dyad, not a formal one, but we work well together and been working together since. Since he got here. I've been here longer than he has, so.
Pull the mic to you so we can face it back.
So my name's Justin Fraser. I'm the Director of Cerebrovascular Neurosurgery at UK. And just by nature of the kind of work we do, I spent a lot of time working in the ICU and have a lot of very complicated inpatients. And so our work together kind of happened naturally, in terms of the types of patients we were taking care of and what their needs were. I've been here since 2011, and it's really kind of neat to see the formalization of things that, frankly, we've been doing for a long time. That's not to say we couldn't do things better, and I've been hearing a lot of ideas this morning. I think that'll be really helpful, but that's really where we are.
I'm Ashley Gomez, Nurse Manager of 5 Internal Medicine and 5 North at Chandler. Dr. Talari and I are probably the babies of the group. We've been together for 3.5 months. I've been at UK just slightly under 5 years, and interestingly enough, from about day one when he came on board over to PavH, we hit the ground running, and we were actually doing a lot of this before. So we were both really excited when this started to formalize and get some additional support.
Thank you, Bo. Just want to say that, November 6th is coming like in 10 days. Everyone is talking about blue wave, red wave, but it feels like we're having quality wave here. Really, thank you, Mark, Phil, and Colin for this important initiative. So I'm Preetam Talari, Associate Professor of Medicine. I'm the Medical Director for 5 Main and 6 South. My partner is Ashley Gomez, and then Heather Courtney. Do you want to wave your hand, Heather? I've been at UK. This is my 8th year. And we work with Lisa also very closely. We've been together for 3+ months, but before that, we were in this kind of dyad relationship with Lisa for more than 3 years. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
My name is Shannon Haynes, and I'm the Patient Care Manager for the NICU. I've been at UK since 2001, so 17 years. Dr. Hannah took the medical director position about 3 years ago, and we formally started meeting about 2.5 years ago. So we meet weekly. And then recently, probably about 1.5 years ago, we pulled our APP provider in with us too, Janelle Hacker. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of this work for a couple of years now.
My name is Mina Hanna. I'm a neonatologist. I'm the medical director of the NICU. I've been at UK since 2012, and I've been at the medical director position for about 3 years now.
I'll try this guy here. Let's see. Is this on?
No? Yes, okay. So I'm Derek Forster. I'm the medical director for infection prevention and control. Been here going on 6 years now. Been working with Rachel since she took this position as the manager. Worked with Kim Blanton closely before that, but yeah.
I'm Rachel Howard. I'm the manager for infection prevention and control. I've been at UK since 1999, but in this role for 2 years. And our dyad, we also work with Kim Blanton very closely, so.
Maybe try it.
Triad.
Borderline. Great. Well, let's start with a few questions, and we'll start down on that end with you, Derek and Rachel. Tell us about a project that you worked on that has been successful, and can you share some of your results as you describe that project, please?
Okay, I guess I'm going to start. So obviously we work closely on a lot of the quality improvement stuff that we do through our department, but you know, we've been talking a lot about the MRSA project that we worked on, and that a lot of you guys worked on as well, that started several years ago. This was something that you know, we knew we weren't performing very well in that from an IPAC standpoint. It was one of our highest standardized infection ratios from a metric standpoint, and we really went a totally different direction, I think, than we were originally planning to go with that. So we did do something a little bit different and was a little bit more innovative and took a little bit more risk than we used to. I think that's important, and we can talk more about that. But that project went really well. You know, it was pretty well received, and the results have been encouraging. We've been excited about that.
We worked together closely with IT and materials to get all of the things necessary. Worked closely with nursing, development, the education department, to get out the information for the nurses on this. So we worked with a lot of people.
Great. So we've got, you know, sort of 3 versions of dyads up here. We've got here on the end with Dr. Forrester and Rachel, sort of a functional dyad responsible for a set of activities across the organization, across the enterprise. We've got unit-based dyads, and we've got a procedural-based dyad. So let's jump to one of the unit-based dyads and ask Dr. Frazier and Heather to share with us, you know, what's your approach been for working together and engaging others on your unit?
Well, I think that the key element to me is always that the solution doesn't always come from the same people, and sometimes, you know, an idea might come from somebody who's working, you know, who hasn't really been on the leadership structure before. And I think one of the things you run into is this idea that, hey, we're over here, we've been given this little hat to wear, so all the solutions have to come from us. But sometimes you get some ideas that are really important that come from someone who's working a shift on the floor. And so I think it's important for us to have that openness and that willingness to listen. You know, one of the stories that kind of we were talking about, I mean, and again, there's lots of things that we've done over the last few years to try to improve patient quality. But one of the stories that kind of sticks in our minds is the issue around CAUTI, which was a big issue for us. So I got here in 2011, and as we grew the cerebrovascular program, we were starting to admit a lot more ruptured brain aneurysm patients, which is great for the institution, great for our patients. We're doing good care. We were doing what we were supposed to. But at that moment, we started to notice that our CAUTI rates were going up. And here I am, a young little doctor coming from my residency, and I've got this protocol in hand that says all subarachnoid patients get a Foley on day 1, and they're going to keep it for 14 days because we've got to measure their eyes and nose strictly. And, you know, I'm very set in my ways. And it's very important.
They all are. Every one of the physicians are.
And then we started to see our quality rates go up. And you guys brought that to our attention and said, hey, this is a problem, big problem. And I'll be honest with you, it was one of the nursing staff, I don't know if it was you or Julie or one of the other nurses had this idea, well, with a lot of these patients are sitting in the ICU, and yes, we can measure their eyes and nose, but they're awake, they can talk, they can tell us, you know, hey, I have to pee, and we can measure that. So here's this rigid protocol, and somebody said, well, can we at least, with the patients who are awake and alert and able to work with us, can we pull their Foleys out day 1 or day 2 and then measure their urine outputs strictly and trust our nurses to do the great job that they do? And that was a game changer, instant game changer for us in terms of our CAUTI rates. Now we still struggle with them on small level. But there was an example of something that we thought we were treating these really sick patients, and we're so busy worrying about fixing their brain aneurysms that we created a problem. And it took a lot for us to say, hey, me personally, it took a lot for me personally to say, hey, yeah, I created this problem. And you guys had a solution to fix it. And so I think it's that openness to be willing to say, hey, there's an issue here. How are we going to fix it? And how are we going to fix it but not sacrifice patient care? And that was a great example. So, I don't.
Great answer. It was beautiful. But it was true. Very set in the ways. They did not want to change their protocol. We had to sit down and show them the data. They listened. Dr. Fraser does a great job of speaking with our nurses at the bedside and getting their input. And he supports nursing, so that's been huge for us. And Sarah Lester was huge in implementing that along with Pam Branson. So shout out to them.
Great. Ashley and Preetham, can you share a project you worked with together in your short time that has been successful?
Go ahead.
So basically, since day one, I think we had our first major meeting in August. We just kind of sat down. We were looking over our employee engagement results, and we too had identified that the physician-nurse communication was a major opportunity for improvement, both from an engagement perspective, but also a patient safety and experience perspective. If we're not talking with our physicians, how are we providing safe, competent care to our patients? So we met with Barb Latham with Ovid, and we came up with a survey tool to help us determine from the nursing staff, okay, what do you want to have with the physicians and what do you need? And no big surprise, overwhelmingly, the nursing staff said, we want to round with them, we want to talk, we want to communicate. So we started rounding weekly as a leadership group with our triad with Heather.
Triad with Lisa.
And Lisa as well. On week A, we round on the units, we talk to the staff, we focus on what's going good with our areas of improvement. On week B, we sit down as the leadership group and take that information and try to proceed with it. And again, we're just in the baby steps now, so we don't have any data or results yet.
And then, Bo, I think I should mention about our prior work as a dyad at Good Sam. We've done like so many projects, like for example, interprofessional bedside rounding, or working on follow-up appointments after patients get discharged, follow-up phone calls, things like getting stools for providers so that they can actually sit and talk to our patients. So many things. But if you want us to talk about results, I should talk about our flagship project, which is interprofessional bedside rounding, which Colin gave a really good name, which is Interprofessional Teamwork Innovation Model. So as you all know, communication gaps is the key for many of the errors that happen in the hospital and many of the inefficiencies. So to close those gaps, what we did as DAD with Lisa and I, and of course involvement of all the team members, pharmacists, case managers, bedside nurses, we wish we had patient input too, but we kind of asked them informally, but not really in a formal way, inviting them to the meetings. So we started this interprofessional teamwork innovation model of rounding, where the physician rounds with the pharmacist, case manager, and the bedside nurse together. And they move around the unit like I heard Dr. Rick Lofgren we met at Vizient described it as amoeba moving around, right, with little pseudopod. So we've seen great results to the point that we published in one of the international journals, BMJ Quality Safety. We have seen that there is improved communication. And providers, initially they thought it would take longer, right, to kind of go around with the team and see patients, but that perception was wrong. We could actually round more efficiently. And then through statistical analysis, we've shown that there are decreased readmissions. And we've added a case manager and a pharmacist additional to the team. But even with that addition, when we did financial analysis, there was no increased cost. So it was a good return on investment or service margin. I mean, there are so many other things, but I can stop here.
Well, I've seen this team in action as the result of a patient who was entirely capable of sending a lot of emails while she was in her bed, and the communication that existed within that room to deal with this particular patient issue was absolutely fantastic. It was smooth. They had established a relationship and an understanding of who was going to take what responsibility before we walked into that room, because they'd been working together in that way already. Let's jump to a procedural area. Dr. Ritchie and Julie, can you tell us a project that you've been working on that's been successful, and what challenges did it present, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Newman and the leadership team for this program. This is awesome, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. The Center for Advanced Surgery is a 8 operating room unit, and we are defined as an ambulatory surgery center. So we've had a lot of projects over the past 8 years together. But I think the first thing that Julie and I did was we gathered our team, our manager team, and we said, what do you see our future? What do you see us being defined as? Are we an ambulatory surgery center? What do you see? What is that to you? And so first of all, we define who we are and where we're going to go. So we all had the exact same vision. So over the years, we've done a couple of projects. One of them is called the SAMA Clinical Outcome Registry. And with the support of the business department, we were able to use an outcome registry just for ambulatory surgery centers. And we were able to benchmark ourselves against all national ambulatory surgery centers, which is about 5,000 plus in the country right now. And in that registry, we looked at pain scores, post-op nausea and vomiting scores. We even looked at the efficiency of the anesthesia providers and surgeons. And with this data, we were able to have structured conversations with individuals to improve our outcomes. And with that, we've done, CAS, I don't want to brag, I hate to brag, but we've always done very, very well in efficiency, patient quality care, patient experience. We're usually always 92% above in all of our metrics. But that was one. The other one was called a continuous catheter outpatient program. And I don't want to hold this, but I want to bring this up because we always talk about being an academic center. Oh, we're academic, we can't be like private practice, we can't be like the high-end surgery centers. Well, we actually can. And Julie and I, the nurses, we always call our patients after they have peripheral nerve blocks, which is a single nerve shot block. And the complaint was, oh, it wore off at 3 o'clock in the morning and my kid was screaming in pain. Well, the expectation was there. They were educated ahead of time that this particular nerve block would only last anywhere between 12 and 14 hours. But even with that expectations, patients were unhappy. So we began to look at what other surgery centers are doing, those high-end surgery centers in Florida where all the professional athletes go. And we did exactly what Dr. Newman suggested. We took their protocol, we looked at their results, and we gave it a UK flavor. And so now our patients are receiving pain control up to 48 hours post-op. And it's been a huge success in patient satisfaction and pain scores, which we did measure.
I'm not going to talk about the rest of them, but I will let, oh, and we also did noise pollution. I'll let you talk about that one, Julia, and the post-op.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work around noise reduction in the operative environment because it is a patient safety and provider safety issue. We struggle with it daily as ORs are very noisy, and the teams, because there are multiple people who participate in the rooms, have side conversations going on. So we've worked on implementing reducing noise by turning off radios at the time of induction and emergence, asking those conversations that occur while the patient is going to sleep to be stepped outside of the room. And so we've had some success around that, though it's a continual struggle in our environment. We've worked hard to do that and published articles around that successfully. And the other things we do is we have an advisory committee that we meet quarterly as a group with the physicians at 6:30 in the morning, usually, with our surgeons, and we talk about issues going on at the Center for Advanced Surgery. We review our patient satisfaction scores there. We talk about the comments that we receive back from Press Ganey and what we can do to improve those comments. We look for any opportunity for what the surgeons need that we're not providing, like updating our facilities, equipment, more synergy around certain cases in order to improve those outcomes and improve the efficiency of moving that patient through the system safely and out and home. So those are some of the projects we've worked on together.
Dr. Hannah and Shannon, can you tell us how you work together to resolve challenges on a daily basis as they come up, and how do you do that in a visible way?
So we have a weekly meeting, that's both of us, and then we have a monthly NICU Operation Council meeting, and that involves other physicians and other nursing staff and RTs and pharmacists and dietitian. And I think the main thing is just making sure that we are both on the same page whenever we're addressing any challenge, mostly from parents.
When we first started meeting together, we had an agenda, like it wasn't just get together and talk. We went through the incident reports, we went through whether there were any nursing issues, whether there were any physician concerns, like we were very intentional about what we were talking about. And I think that's helped guide us, you know. We don't do that now, but we've also started doing rounds in the unit. So one week we round on the staff and find out what kind of issues they're having, or if they're doing okay, or if they have the equipment they need for their job. We've also started rounding on families together. So, you know, it's a lot of commitment of time because we had 70 patients that we round on. But we can address family issues, and we're there at the same time hearing what they're saying, and then we can address it, be on the same page together.
Great. Can you give us a specific example of a time when the two of you actually had to engage with a patient and family together, and what joint techniques did you use to help resolve and facilitate resolution of concerns?
Yeah, we recently had a baby that had a genetic condition and was expected to die, and the mother was, her way was coping with this was just to blame everyone. So it was difficult for the providers and for nursing staff, and the way we dealt with it is, again, making sure that we're on the same page when we're addressing the nursing staff and when we're addressing the parents, and we're discussing it before and after we're talking with the parents.
We also got Gwen Moreland and Dr. Drouse involved with that family. Paula Holbrook was involved. We used the ethics committee, so we also utilized some other resources.
Great. Well, our time has come to an end here, and I want to thank our panelists for sharing their thoughts and their early work in the regard of a dyad model that we're moving to across the board. A couple of high points that I heard here this morning from our procedural area is that they were very intentional in preparing the team for this new model and getting their input on the front end of being a dyad and what it is that they wanted to accomplish, so that it wasn't your goal, it was everyone's goal. And I think that alludes to some of the comments that Drs. Newman and Williams made this morning. And Preetham and Ashley, what I learned from you is that you actually had been doing this before, and this is a reapplication of success that you had observed or experienced elsewhere in the organization and translated it to a new environment. Clearly you had some lessons learned the first time around, or the first couple times around, and brought it forward. And I think Justin and Heather, I'll actually reflect on what I heard from Justin, is that sharing some data between the two groups really generated a conversation around flexibility and understanding with a set of facts how it is to perhaps best move forward, and understand that the way you've been doing it might not be the best way for the patients who you are serving. And on the end, hearing from Derek and Rachel, we talked about infections down on this end of the table, and I think Derek and Rachel are an example of subject matter experts, a dyad of subject matter experts that we can provide to you all to share those data with respect to results in infections or infection prevention and those kinds of things. So as we look at what Colleen and Phil presented in terms of the resources that are available to you, we've got dyadic resources that are available to support enterprise objectives in a cascading fashion. So don't forget that as you begin your individual dyadic work on your units. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their time. And for sharing their experiences, and know that I am certain that these fantastic team members stand willing and able to help support you all as individuals as you move forward as well. So thank you for that in advance.